Hogan's heroes. The cast then and now, the faces behind the laughter, and the endings you never saw coming. For millions of viewers, Hogan's Heroes wasn't just a sitcom. It was laughter carved out of impossible darkness. A show that hid real danger behind jokes, disguises, and one unforgettable salute. But watch it today, and something feels different. Those familiar faces that once filled living rooms with laughter after dinner now carry the weight of time, of loss, of endings. Behind the comedy were real people, lives marked by survival, by struggle, by illness, and by final chapters that many fans never expected. So in 2026, let's take one more look at the cast of Hogan's Heroes, who they were on screen, and what became of them once the cameras stopped rolling. We start, of course, with the man at the center of it all. Colonel Robert Hogan was brought to life by Bob Crane, just 37 years old when the show began. Cool, clever, always 3 steps ahead of every guard in the camp. Hogan turned a prisoner of war compound into the nerve center of a secret Allied operation, and he did it with the easy smile of a sitcom lead, hiding the calculating mind of a master spy. Every tunnel, every disguise, every impossible scheme felt like a game he'd already won before it even started. But Bob Crane's own story ended in tragedy. He passed away in 1978 at just 49 years old after being found murdered in Scottsdale, Arizona. To this day, the case remains one of Hollywood's most haunting unsolved mysteries, a dark, unresolved shadow cast over the life of a man who once made millions laugh. What made Hogan work as a character was simple. He never looked trapped. Behind the barbed wire, behind the fake obedience, he always seemed to know something the Germans didn't. And that quiet confidence turned Stalag 13 from a prison camp into something closer to Hogan's own personal headquarters. Then there was Newkirk, played by Richard Dawson, just 32 at the time. Charming, quick-fingered, oozing cheeky British confidence, Dawson gave Hogan's team its smoothest operator. Picking a lock, slipping into a disguise, talking his way out of trouble, Newkirk made every scheme feel just a little lighter, a little faster, a little more stylish. Richard Dawson lived a long and full life after the show, passing away in 2012 at 79. Of course, most people remember what came next for him just as much as Hogan's Heroes itself. He became a household name all over again as the original host of Family Feud, where his easy charm, quick wit, and famous habit of kissing every contestant made him one of television's most recognizable personalities. On the show, Newkirk wasn't the loudest voice in the barracks, but he made the hardest tricks look effortless. The perfect gentleman thief in a story built entirely on secrets and sleight of hand. Next, Sergeant Andrew Carter, played by Larry Havis, just 29 years old. Nervous, sweet-natured, and somehow a genius with explosives, Carter brought a strange, innocent kind of chaos to the team. He looked like the last man on earth you'd trust with dynamite, which made it all the funnier that he was exactly the man Hogan needed whenever something needed to go boom. Larry Havis passed away in 2003 at 67. Beyond the show, he stayed busy as a writer, a singer, a producer, and a comedy performer, and later turned to teaching theater, passing his experience on to a new generation of young actors. What made Carter so endearing was that contrast, danger wrapped in innocence. In a show full of disguises and secret radios and daring missions, he made sabotage feel almost boyish. Nervous hands, wide eyes, and a gentle smile hiding a genuinely dangerous skill. Now, the man who made every scene feel more dangerous just by walking into the room, General Burkhalter, played by Leon Askin, who was 58 when the series began. Loud, imposing, forever threatening Clink with disaster, Burkhalter dragged real military pressure into the camp's comic power struggles. He was built to intimidate everyone around him, but somehow, around Hogan and Klink, all that authority just became one more layer of panic. Leon Askin passed away in 2005, at the remarkable age of 97. And here's where the story gets heavier than the comedy ever let on. In real life, Askin had fled Nazi-occupied Austria before rebuilding his life and his career in the United States. Think about that for a moment. A man who escaped the very regime he later spent years playing for laughs. It gives his performance in a World War II comedy a weight the audience at the time may never have fully understood. On screen, Burkhalter worked because he rattled Klink before Hogan even had to lift a finger. His booming voice and constant threats raised the stakes, while making the entire German command structure look just a little more ridiculous every time Hogan stayed one step ahead. Then there was Kinch, played by Ivan Dixon, 34 years old at the time. Calm, sharp, absolutely essential to the underground operation. Kinch was the one who kept the radio lines open, the coolest head in a room full of bluffs and jokes and near misses. While everyone else was busy performing, Kinch was the one quietly making sure the whole mission actually worked. Ivan Dixon passed away in 2008 at 76. After stepping away from the series, he built a respected second career as a television director, working on shows like The Waltons, The Rockford Files, Magnum, P.I., and The A-Team. On Hogan's Heroes, Kinch never needed the biggest punchline to leave an impression. His value was in the quiet focus behind the scenes, the steady voice on the radio, the sense that the entire secret network depended on him staying sharp. Now for a character built entirely on getting in his own way, Colonel Crittenden, played by Bernard Fox, 38 years old at the time. Proper, confident, and hilariously certain he knew better than everyone around him, Crittenden brought a very particular flavor of British chaos into Hogan's carefully laid plans. He was the type of officer who could stroll in with perfect manners and somehow ruin an entire mission before he even realized he was the problem. Bernard Fox passed away in 2016 at 89. Many viewers know him from elsewhere too, as Dr. Bombay on Bewitched, and as Colonel Archibald Gracie in Titanic, proof of just how easily he moved between sitcom absurdity and serious period drama. What made Crittenden land as a character was that he made competence look genuinely dangerous. Hogan's plans lived or died on timing, secrecy, and trust, and Crittenden could unravel all three at once, armed with nothing but a confident smile and the worst possible decision. Outside the camp fence, there was Tiger, played by Arlene Martel, 29 at the time. Mysterious, brave, ice-cold under pressure, she brought a genuine touch of resistance intrigue into Hogan's world. Every time she appeared, it was a reminder that the operation didn't end at Stalag 13's gates. There were contacts, risks, and secret allies moving through the shadows well beyond the camp. Arlene Martel passed away in 2014 at 78. Classic television fans likely also remember her as T'Pring from Star Trek, another unforgettable presence in another defining show of the 1960s. Tiger gave Hogan's Heroes a sharper espionage edge. The comedy kept moving fast, but her scenes made the stakes feel bigger, as if the tunnels and tricks of Stalag 13 were just one small piece of a much larger underground war. Then there was General Burkhalter's superior in rank and seriousness, General Brunner, played by John Holt, 60 years old at the time. Stern, polished, built entirely for authority, Brunner gave Hogan's operation yet another high-ranking officer to quietly outmaneuver. Every visit from him raised the tension, because a single wrong move in front of him could have brought the whole scheme crashing down. He passed away in 1991 at 85. His sharp features and unmistakable voice made him a familiar face across classic television, turning up in Star Trek, The Twilight Zone, and countless guest roles where he could command a room the instant he walked into it. The trick with Brunner was simple but effective. The more serious and intimidating the officers looked, the funnier it became that Hogan was still quietly running the whole show. Stalag 13 was drowning in rules, ranks, and surprise inspections. And somehow, through it all, the prisoners were still the ones actually in charge. And finally, in a smaller but memorable role, the diner host played by Buck Young, 45 years old at the time. Brief, straight-faced, and part of the ordinary world beyond the camp walls, his appearance added a touch of everyday realism right before the story slipped back into spy game chaos. That was the beauty of Hogan's heroes. Even the smallest role could become part of the bigger trick, as long as the timing was right. Buck Young passed away in 2080. Many viewers likely remember his face from police dramas and action shows, especially The Rockford Files, where he became a familiar and reliable supporting presence. His brief appearance here is a perfect example of how fluidly the series could shift worlds. One moment a quiet diner or hotel lobby, the next, right back into the tunnels, the disguises, and the war being fought in secret, one clever plan at a time. Now let's move to another group of faces. The ones who worked their way into disguises, false papers, and schemes that only worked because everyone else missed what was right in front of them. First up, LeBeau, played by Robert Clary, just 39 years old at the time. Small in stature but big in personality, LeBeau brought French charm, warmth, and quick wit to Hogan's team. Whether he was cooking, arguing, sneaking through a mission, or helping sell a disguise, he was the one who made the camp feel a little more human, a little more alive. Robert Clary lived a remarkably long life, passing away in 2022 at 96. And behind his characters, humor was a story most viewers never fully appreciated. As a teenager, Clary himself survived Nazi concentration camps. Think about that for a second. A man who lived through that horror went on to play a prisoner of war, finding laughter and defiance behind enemy lines. It makes LeBeau so much more than comic relief. It makes him personal, and it makes his presence on that show genuinely remarkable. Behind every joke was an actor who had witnessed real darkness and still chose to help build a character full of life, loyalty, and spirit. Then there's Hilda, played by Sigrid Valdez, who was 30 at the time. Glamorous, playful, stationed right in the middle of Klink's office, she brought a bright, breezy energy to the daily grind of camp life. Surrounded by uniforms, orders, and secret schemes, Hilda gave the show a lighter, almost office comedy rhythm right in the eye of the storm. Sigrid Valdez passed away in 2007 at 72, and her story became more than professional, it became deeply personal, because she later married Bob Crane, forever linking her own life to one of the show's most famous and most tragic figures. On screen, Hilda made Stalag 13 feel strangely relatable, almost like an ordinary workplace hiding inside a world of tunnels, secret radios, and constant schemes. Her charm and comic timing gave the madness a touch of everyday normalcy. Next, Oskar Schnitzer, played by Walter Janowitz, 52 years old at the time. Serious, watchful, perfectly at home in the tense military atmosphere surrounding the camp, he added another layer of old-world unease to Hogan's secret operations. His presence helped make Stalag 13 feel crowded and dangerous, full of officers, guards, visitors, anyone who might accidentally stumble too close to the truth. Walter Janowitz passed away in 1997 at 84, and just like Robert Clary, his story carries far more weight than his screen time might suggest. Before ever stepping foot in American television, Janowitz had fled Nazi-occupied Europe himself. That's a detail worth sitting with. His brief appearances in a World War II comedy carry a personal history most viewers at the time never knew was there. That's really the quiet secret of Hogan's heroes, real history hiding just beneath broad comedy. Even the smallest roles, played by actors like Janovitz, gave the setting texture and truth, reminding audiences that the jokes only worked because the danger underneath still felt genuinely real. Then things get colder. Gestapo Major Hochstetter was played by Howard Kane, 38 years old at the time. Suspicious, calculating, and far more dangerous than your average camp officer, Hochstetter brought real menace every time the Gestapo entered the picture. Hogan could joke and bluff his way past Klink all day long, but around men like Hochstetter, the entire game suddenly felt a lot riskier. Howard Kane passed away in 2009 at 81. Over a long career full of television appearances, roles like Hochstetter showed just how skillfully he could inject real threat and seriousness into a comedy without ever tipping it over into something too dark. That was Hochstetter's whole function. Really, the moment the Gestapo showed up, the tone shifted instantly. His presence was a constant reminder that Hogan's clever schemes were unfolding inside a world where a single slip-up could mean something far worse than a punchline. Now a face who joined a little later, Baker, played by Kenneth Washington, just 22 years old at the time. Young, sharp, quietly capable, he came aboard later in the series and helped keep the underground operation running. His role tied directly into the team's communications work, making him part of the secret network keeping the prisoners one step ahead of their captors. Kenneth Washington passed away in 2025 at 78. He holds a genuine piece of television history. He was one of the very few black actors to join the show as a series regular, stepping into that role during the final season, at a time when that kind of visibility on American television was still rare. Baker brought something new to Stalag 13 at a point when the show was already well established, and his arrival helped carry the communication side of the mission forward. A reminder that Hogan's whole operation depended on every single voice, every signal, every person doing their part in secret. And rounding things out, Corporal Langenscheidt, played by John Cedar, 34 years old at the time, eager, official, and endlessly easy to pull into confusion, giving Stalag 13 one more familiar face of military routine for Hogan's men to quietly outsmart. He belonged to that world of endless orders, inspections, and paperwork, exactly the kind of rigid structure that Hogan's team could quietly bend into their next move. John Cedar passed away in 2011 at 80. He went on to build a career that spanned acting, writing, and production, staying creative both in front of the camera and behind it. What made Langenscheidt work so well was how perfectly he fit into the camp's everyday machinery, the guards marching, the papers being checked, the orders being barked out, and somehow, underneath all that discipline, Hogan's men were still the ones quietly running the entire place. Next, Major Hochstetter's counterpart in Outside Authority, Colonel Decker, played by John Stephenson, 42 years old at the time. Stern, polished, and just suspicious enough to spell trouble, Decker embodied the kind of outside scrutiny that could threaten Hogan's whole hidden network. Every scene with him carried the same unsettling feeling, that one serious visitor might finally see straight through the operation. John Stephenson passed away in 2015 at 91. Interestingly, many viewers actually knew his voice far better than his face, thanks to decades of animation work with Hanna-Barbera, where he helped bring countless beloved cartoon characters to life. Decker's scenes carried that classic Hogan's hero's tension: one inspection, one wrong answer, one secret standing a little too close to being exposed. That pressure is exactly what made the comedy click, because Hogan always had to look calm on the outside, while danger walked right through the front door. Now the man at the very heart of the whole setup, Colonel Klink, played by Werner Klemperer, 45 years old at the time. Proud, anxious, and desperate to look competent in front of his superiors, Klink was the perfect commandant for a camp that was, unbeknownst to him, entirely run by his own prisoners. He had the uniform, the office, the title, but everyone watching knew exactly where the real power actually lived. Werner Klemperer passed away in 2080, and here's a detail that adds real depth to the whole show. In real life, Klemperer was a Jewish refugee who had fled Nazi Germany with his family. He only agreed to take the role of Klink on one condition: that the character always be portrayed as a fool, never as someone to admire. That's exactly what made Klink work as the butt of the joke at the center of the entire system. His vanity, his fear, his constant hunger for approval made him easy for Hogan to manipulate, turning every order that came down from command into just one more opportunity for the prisoners to come out ahead. Then there's Maria, played by Nita Talbot, who was 36 at the time. Clever, glamorous, and never someone you could fully trust, she brought a genuine spy thriller energy into Hogan's world. With Maria, charm was never just charm. It could be a distraction, a weapon, or the opening move of something far more complicated. Nita Talbot is still with us today, now 95 years old. Her performance as Maria earned her an Emmy nomination, and she became one of the most memorable recurring female characters across the entire run of Hogan's Heroes, injecting a sharper, less predictable energy into the show whenever she showed up. Maria had a way of making a room feel both less safe and more exciting all at once. Around Hogan, she could be an ally, a rival, or something caught right in between, and that uncertainty gave their scenes together a spark unlike anything else in the camp. A smaller role, but a memorable one, the nurse, played by Victoria Carroll, just 24 at the time. Brief but polished, she fit neatly into the show's fast-moving world of disguises and cover stories, adding one more small piece to that classic mission of the week rhythm. Victoria Carroll is now 85, and she's built a long, varied career as an actress, a voice performer, and a comedy partner alongside her husband, Michael Bell. Her work stretched far beyond this early appearance, especially through voice acting and television comedy. And that's really the beauty of Hogan's Heroes. Even a small nurse role could matter. In a show built on false identities, fake emergencies, and Ret plans, every uniform, every background face, every quick reaction could end up being part of the trick. Then there's Dr. Suzette Lech, played by Ruta Lee, 32 years old at the time. Stylish, sharp, full of confident screen presence, she brought a bright guest star energy into the show's wartime comedy world. Ruta Lee is now 91 and remains one of classic television's most enduring personalities. Her career has spanned film, television, stage, and countless public appearances, and she's also known for her long-standing charitable work with the Thalians. On screen, Dr. Lech added a real dose of charm and sophistication, because in Hogan's world, any visitor could turn out to be part of the danger, the disguise, or the distraction, and Ruta Lee knew exactly how to make that presence count. Now, a voice from somewhere out in the shadows, Mama Bear, played by Barbara Babcock, 31 at the time. Warm, coded, tied directly into the team's secret radio network, she gave Hogan's operation another vital voice out there in the invisible world beyond Stalag 13's fences. Her character reinforced something important. Every mission depended on unseen allies, listening and waiting somewhere out of sight. Barbara Babcock is now 88, and she's remembered for far more than Hogan's Heroes, for her Emmy-winning work on Hill Street Blues, and for her memorable role on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Her career carried her through drama, westerns, science fiction, and classic television alike. Mama Bear mattered because Hogan's missions were never just about tunnels and disguises. Voices crackling over the radio, hidden contacts, trusted code names, all of it made the prisoner's secret war feel so much bigger than the camp itself. Next, Lily Franks, played by Marion Marshall, 27 years old at the time. Brave, vulnerable, caught right in the middle of wartime Europe's dangers, she brought a genuinely emotional note into a show usually built on tricks and disguises. Marion Marshall is now 84, remembered for a long career across television, stage, and film. Elvis fans might also recognize her from The Trouble with Girls, where she starred opposite Elvis Presley himself, reaching a completely different audience than sitcom television usually did. Lily's story gave the comedy a softer edge, a reminder that behind the jokes and the clever plans, Hogan's Heroes could still pause for a moment and let viewers remember exactly what the war was really about. Then there's Maria, yes, a different Maria from the one we already met, played by Doris Singleton, 49 years old at the time. Sharp, charming, far more capable than she first let on, this Maria brought a clever undercover agent twist into Schultz's usually comic little corner of the world. Doris Singleton passed away in 2012 at 92. Long before Hogan's Heroes, classic TV fans already knew her as Carolyn Appleby on I Love Lucy, where her polished comic timing made her the perfect foil for Lucille Ball. On this show, her character worked because she turned one of Schultz's harmless, romantic daydreams into part of the Resistance's game, proof that even a flirtation in a tavern could hide a message, a mission. And one more reason Hogan's network stayed a step ahead. Then Dr. Kron, played by Anthony Eustrel, 65 years old at the time. Formal, precise, wrapped in old-world authority, he brought a hospital setting into Hogan's spy comedy world, where even routine medical procedures could hide a secret plan. Anthony Eustrel passed away in 1979 at 76. Born in London, he built a long-screen career through American guest roles, appearing on shows like Perry Mason, Get Smart, and My Favorite Martian, before becoming one more familiar face in the wider world surrounding Stalag 13. Dr. Kron fit right into the show's formula, because Hogan's Heroes could turn absolutely any official setting into a battlefield of tricks. A hospital, a uniform, a diagnosis, a clipboard, all just one more tool for Hogan to use. Next, Wilhelmina, played by Celeste Yarnall, just 23 years old at the time. Beautiful, brave, and about as far from the little old lady LeBeau was expecting as you could get. She gave the episode a playful twist while still staying grounded in the dangerous world of underground contacts. Celeste Yarnall passed away in 2018 at 74. Her career reached well beyond guest spots on sitcoms. Fans also remember her from Star Trek, Bonanza, and the Elvis Presley film Live a Little, Love a Little. Later in life, she moved into real estate, nutrition, and holistic pet care writing. Wilhelmina made her mission feel lighter and more surprising without ever draining the danger from it, proof that in Hogan's world, appearances lied constantly, and the Resistance could hide behind almost anyone. Then there's Lee Lindemeyer, played by Inger Stevens. Continuing, played at 29 years old. Young, pretty, and swept up in one of General Burkhalter's marriage schemes, Lee brought a romantic, misunderstanding Kraz. Hing into the camp's usual rhythm of orders, inspections, and secret plans. She's now 89. She appeared in 2 separate roles on Hogan's Heroes and also worked across 1960s film and television, including projects connected to the man from UNCLE and Chamber of Horrors. Her storyline worked because it gave Clink a completely different kind of panic to deal with, not bombs, not tunnels, not Gestapo trouble, but marriage. And somehow, even then, Hogan still found a way to turn the confusion to his advantage. Then Helga, played by Cynthia Lynn, 29 years old at the time. Elegant, playful, perfectly placed right inside Clink's office, she gave the camp's command center a lighter rhythm woven between the orders, the schemes, and the secret messages. Cynthia Lynn passed away in 2014 at 76. Born in Latvia, she actually lived through wartime Europe before building her acting career in America, a real-life background that adds an unexpected layer of history to her time on the show. Helga helped set the early tone of Stalag 13 as a proper sitcom stage, where every entrance, every interruption, every little distraction around Clink's office could become part of Hogan's next move. And finally, we come to the character almost everyone remembers first, Sergeant Schultz, played by John Banner, 55 years old at the time. Lovable, anxious, endlessly desperate not to know too much, Schultz became the guard whose famous catchphrase, "I know nothing," turned him into one of the most quoted characters in television history. He wore the uniform of authority, but his gentle, fearful nature made him feel less like a threat and more like a frightened neighbor, just trying to get through the war in one piece. John Banner passed away in 1973 at 63, and here's the detail that changes everything about how you see him. In real life, Banner was a Jewish actor from Austria who lost family members in the Holocaust. That makes his role in a World War II comedy both remarkable and deeply layered. Schultz worked as a character because he was never truly cruel. He looked the other way. He panicked at exactly the wrong moments. And somehow, he turned ignorance itself into a kind of survival. In a camp overflowing with secrets, he became funny for one simple reason. He knew just enough to know he never wanted to know anything more. Looking back now at the cast of Hogan's Heroes, the laughter feels tangled up with something far heavier, the weight of history, of loss, of lives that carried more than any script ever could. Time has taken them from us, one by one, but their voices, their timing, and their humor haven't gone anywhere. They're still with us, every time we press play. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more classic cast, then and now stories.